So, Julian, thank you very much for that terrific welcome, and thank you and to the Sydney Mining Club for the opportunity to have a bit of a go here today. But also, Julian, for you and your colleagues' support for our wonderful industry over the years of the establishment of this club, and all of those people who have sailed in it and around it and spoken and so on. Great support for the industry, so well done. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of special guests, Julian, if you don't mind, here with me here today. We have Mr. Liu, who is the president of ICBC here in Australia. ICBC, the world's largest bank. Certainly, so thank you, Mr. Liu, for coming along today. And a number of other special guests. My very good friend Rob Stewart, tragic Geelong supporter, but here today. And thank you, Rob, and a few other people I'll mention during this particular journey, Julian, that we're going to have today. So I've got a small presentation here of a dozen or so slides, and then if there's anybody left in the room at the end of that, Julian, and the slightest bit interested in asking questions, then I'm happy to field some of those. So let me just begin here with the disclaimer. To us in the industry, and certainly in EMR and the Tiger and various other companies that I'm associated with here, Australia and Asia locked in what we call the virtuous circle of economic growth and prosperity, of which our fabulous resources industry is a driver and a beneficiary. It starts with demand, and resources demand will continue to grow strongly. It is certainly not over yet. It's led by China, followed by India, with the rest of the developing world all chipping in from the edge of the green, all revving their engines to get on that superhighway of economic growth and prosperity. Doesn't mean there won't be a few humps and bumps along the way here, but the direction and the force are perfectly clear in terms of GDP growth going out multiple decades, and we are going to be a great beneficiary of all of that. Terrific prospectivity, not only here in Australia and nearby Asia and the greater Asian region, prospectivity that hasn't really been discovered yet, you might say, Julian, so very much and underexplored within our region. Wonderful people, great population, all with enterprise spirits in this part of the world, and particularly here in Australia, we've got the absolute competitive advantage in terms of our technical capability, technical managerial capability. And in terms of the technical capability itself and the technology, Australia is world-class, best in show, best in class. Our Canadian and American friends would dispute that from time to time, but some terrific work going on here, and indeed a revolution occurring in terms of the technology. Capital is becoming increasingly available. There's a surplus being created every day, a greater surplus every day, becoming increasingly available from within the region. You wouldn't think that in the last 6 to 12 months or so, but is certainly the case. And that leads us to supply. Supply is the problem, demand isn't, and it will be constrained. And as we keep banging on, Julian, whether it's at the AusIMM or the MCA or any other fora that we get the opportunity to do so, we need to reduce regulation to unconstrain that supply because it's all man-made constraints. Okay, so in terms of the demand side, a little bit of a busy slide here, but the point about this is that China and Asia generally, engine rooms for multi-decade economic growth, the fundamentals absolutely clear. China's driving the demand for resources, and the other developing nations as they get to the point of economic takeoff, past the point of economic takeoff to sustainable growth. Rapid and rolling urbanisation, hukou reform in China. Mr. Liu can tell you all about that. Greater urbanisation, and particularly for the lower tier Chinese cities. Surge in infrastructure will continue to occur, no question about that. And you recently saw just this week, actually, the NDRC approved $255 trillion renminbi for further railway network development in China through to 2020. So there's no question about those infrastructure developments. Asia is at that metal-intensive stage of economic growth, the number of cans per man per day perhaps consumed. So metal intensity there in China and other parts of the world. Commodities are great benefactor from all of that. Stronger and burgeoning middle class, we say, with greater consumption capability, some structural reshaping there in terms of investment demand, investment goods moving over to consumer goods. And very importantly, the sixth fundamental here is there's a social imperative in China and a social imperative in all of those developing countries to ensure that that growth continues. So just on these, just on some of these charts here, you've heard of Venn diagrams and Gantt charts and so on. Well, we have a couple of wow charts here, and up on the, can't quite see this, but up on the top right-hand corner there, this isn't an A380 wiring diagram here. This is the Tokyo subway compared to the Chengdu subway on the left-hand side. So don't tell me there isn't going to be massive development in those 50 of those cities in China waiting to get to the same level of sophistication over the next multiple decades as the more advanced cities in Asia. Second point about the metal intensity there, and if you look very closely, the second chart on the right-hand side there talks about refrigerator penetration. Well, I actually know something, Julian, about refrigerator penetration. Rob Stewart and I have penetrated a few refrigerators in the past, and Paul Espy the same. Paul and Rob and I actually shared a flat about, don't think it, multiple decades ago, we can say, and we penetrated a few refrigerators at that time. But it doesn't matter whether it's refrigerators or motor cars or TVs or air conditioners, you're going to see China and the rest of the developing world move up that penetration curve, and the base metals and commodities are going to be the big benefactors there. And that leads us to the little green chart there, which is copper consumption, the increase in copper consumption per annum provided by BlackRock even here, so probably fairly conservative, but just shows the massive increase in copper consumption that is coming as a result of this particular growth. Then down on the bottom left-hand side, this is the story really of the inland provinces in China to develop. I mean, basically the Chinese economy, if you like, one way of looking at it is there's three Chinas. There's Eastern China, and that's where most of the development has occurred to this point. Then you've got Central China, Western China, with that development still to come, and the hookah reform and the agrarian reform and various other reforms are going to help that. So you've got multiple decades of growth there to come. And finally, in terms of what we call the social imperative, which is really the political imperative, a polite way of saying the political imperative here to keep that growth going, and the new leadership in China under President Xi here has made it absolutely crystal clear this is going to be reformation for the next 10 years. It's going to be deregulation of the financial system. It's going to be fixing that east-west divide. It's going to be fixing the rich-poor divide. It's going to be reforming the state-owned enterprises. It's going to be encouraging the privately owned enterprises. And they all mean the same thing, Julian. They all mean there's going to be a terrific wave of further growth yet to come. Okay, so that's China, but it's not only about China. You've also got two massive economies further to the north and west. That's Indonesia, the new so-called rising tiger here, and all of those things on the left-hand side will lead to all of those things on the right-hand side. You've got a stable and growing economy, very rich in resources, great track record in development there with its oil and gas and minerals, terrific location in terms of close to growth centres, and a very large, young, enthusiastic and enterprise population there. And when I say internationally well connected, tremendously connected into ASEAN, of course, the nearby Asian nations, back into China and Japan, who are courting favour with Indonesia, to the west in terms of the subcontinent, and there's a lot of Indian capital coming into Indonesia, and of course Indonesia very well connected out into the Middle East, and wonderful connections back here to Australia. Don't listen to what the media and the odd mobile telephone tapping incident from time to time, or the odd boat incident. The relationship with Indonesia is absolutely fabulous. So new rising tiger there, and all of the wow charts to be able to substantiate that. And in terms of India, people give it a bit of a hard time every now and again, Julian, in terms it's not going to make it, it's not the same as China, won't have the same growth rates and so on. Well, don't you worry about that. It's already having it. There are 4 states there that have got a population as big as Indonesia, 300 million, that have had an average growth rate of greater than 10% over the past 5 years. So it's got all of the necessary ingredients for long, sustainable economic growth, and that is large landmass, large population, great resources, very well located, and an enterprise spirit. So got all of those ingredients. So that's the demand side, and that's why we believe that we've got multiple decades. The wave is still going there. In terms of the regional prospectivity, turning now to the supply side, this greater Australia-Asian region, abundant in resources, whether it's oil and gas, all the base and precious metals, and the bulks. And this is just an example here. It's copper, gold, moly systems throughout this part of the world. And there's some wonderful, wonderful ore bodies here, but the best is yet to come. There's more and more discoveries to be made. And when you look at the great copper gold ore bodies here in certainly the Southeast Asian region, from Bougainville, Missima, Lihir, Ok Tedi, Porgera, Grasberg, Erzberg, Freeberg, Stan Freeberg is there. You've got Tampakan up in southern Philippines, the other great porphyry copper gold deposits of the Philippines, Kalian, Gosawong, Batu, Hijau, Tuju Bukit, a recent discovery there, and then up into Sumatra, where our very own Matabi gold mine, and further north, and Julian mentioned Butong. And of course these rocks don't just stop there in the ocean, they keep going up into Myanmar, and into Laos and so on. It's worth noting here that my very good friend Paul Espy, somewhat associated at both ends of this particular spectrum here, Julian, at the eastern end here with Bougainville, where his father was the great founder and developer of that wonderful mine, among others inside the Rio Tinto group. And of course Paul's grandfather was a developer and founder of the very high grade base and precious metals mine up there in Myanmar a long time ago. And Paul and I were in cahoots when we developed, of course, the Sepon copper and gold mines there in Laos. These rocks continue up into China, Central Asia, out into Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and further out into Uzbekistan. You've got some of the biggest one of the biggest gold deposits in the world there at Murantau out in Uzbekistan. And then, of course, up into the northern Pacific, the northwestern Pacific, China, and Russia, all the way up there, Julian, to Chukotka in Pacific Russia, where there's terrific copper-gold prospectivity there, basically untouched. You mentioned Kamchatka and Sakhalin Island there, and of course we're up there in coking coal, with the Tigers Realm coal up there in Chukotka. Those rocks, of course, come down the other side of the Pacific, on the eastern Pacific, all the way down through the Rockies and the Andes into South America. And terrific prospectivity there too, but the amount of money that's been spent on that eastern side in terms of Canada, North America, Alaska, South America, is about 100 times the expenditure that's occurred on exploration over here on the Western Pacific. So that's why we're able to say the best is yet to come in terms of discovery in this part of the world. So fabulous opportunities for discovery, and therefore fabulous opportunities for all the wonderful geologists in the room and those prospecting companies. So terrific opportunities there. In terms of our world-class technical capability, you don't need to hear it from me banging on about it here. You've got it's living in this room. You've got wonderful, wonderful examples of leading-edge, world-class technical capability from discovery, resource drill-out, pre-feasibility studies, design, engineering, commissioning, ramp-up, sustainable operations through to continuous improvement and growth. And wherever you are developing or prospecting, developing your deposit or prospecting around the world, you'll run across an Australian geologist or mining engineer or metallurgist for sure. And wherever it is that you're looking to do your very important community work around the world, and when you're looking for somebody who's an expert in that particular area, you'll find them here at the ANU or the James Cook University or other Australian universities, or indeed inside DFAT. So terrific experience there. But again, the best is yet to come here. The innovation that's going on, excellence in innovation in our industry is just sensational. There's a revolution occurring in terms of automation, robotics, driverless trucks, driverless trains, driverless drills, remote sensing, all driven by scale, all driven by safety, all driven by productivity, and driven by the high cost of labour. So a terrific amount of work going on there. Energy efficiency. Julian mentioned that I'm a founding patron of SEEK, which is the Coalition for Eco-Efficient Comminution. If you can work all that out, let me know what it is. But that was started by a wonderful lady called Elizabeth Lewis-Gray, one of the founders of Gecko Systems, and they're into energy efficiency, and it's all about making people, companies, more and more aware of the savings that can be made in energy in crushing and bumping and grinding and what is known as comminution. So a terrific amount of work going on there. In terms of scale efficiencies, we're learning very much from the oil industry, particularly modularisation and so on. In terms of scale, I do remember when we developed the Hammersley project back in Rio Tinto. The first development was around about 5 million tonnes, and we took it to way beyond that over a period of about 30 or 40 years, up to where it is today, north of 200 million tonnes per annum. In the mighty FMG, Fortescue, and I see Julian, thank you for mentioning FMG, and I see Russell Scrimshaw is here today, one of the founders there. Just a wonderful job. It's gone from 0 to 155 million tonne capacity in just a few short years. Nothing short of absolutely sensational, and driven by that wonderful magician Andrew Forrest, a great person and an absolute great Australian. So a terrific example of what can be done and what needs to be done, and we need to do more of them. And I should say, Ms. Liu, it's also a wonderful example of China-Australia investment. It's a terrific example of Chinese-Australian partnership in terms of finance, marketing and technology, and it's worked very, very well in amongst some joint ventures and cooperations that haven't worked very well. The Fortescue story is nothing short of sensational for China, for Australia, for the mighty FMG. In terms of discovery, Julian, of further ore bodies, we know that the discoveries in Australia are declining, and in fact worldwide they're declining for copper and gold. But the new ore bodies, will be there, there's no question about that. They'll simply be deeper, and they need more innovative techniques and technologies to make those discoveries. and there's some fabulous work going on by the private groups, also by Amira, CSIRO, Geoscience Australia, just some leading edge work going on, and in fact at Bort Longyear Labs in Adelaide and South Australia generally, terrific work in terms of a deeper search and analysis there. So lots of work to be continue to do there, and not only here in Australia, of course, we can use that technology and that technical capability in Asia, particularly to make those further discoveries. And in terms of regional capital becoming increasingly available, just 2 or 3 things here in this particular chart. The Asian exchanges have actually outgrown everybody in the last several years, so terrific growth there in the so-called emerging markets. And Stan Chart has estimated that by 2030, in about 15 years or so, the equity capitalisation of the bourses, 50% of that will be in China and in other parts of India, Japan and Asia. Generally speaking, so that's 50% of the world. In terms of the outbound investment of China, set to continue, highly encouraged in China for the state-owned enterprises and the privately owned enterprises there. The last 5 years, $150 billion or thereabouts, and Australia has been a great recipient of that. And as far as I'm concerned, the best is yet to come there. There'll be more and more of it, and of the acquisitions of resources here in Australia in the past few years, you've seen some very good examples of Chinese investment coming in there. That will certainly continue. And in terms of M&A development activity, Asia is going to be the place. And again, we have a wonderful opportunity to be involved in all of that for all of our people in the industry. So the good news there, Julian, you wouldn't think in the last 12 months that the regional capital is becoming increasingly available, but sometimes you've got to go to various places to find it. Okay, so in terms of the supply and from Australia, and every opportunity I get, Julian, whether it's the Oz IMM Forum or anywhere else, we're always giving people advice about this, because all of these supply constraints here in Australia are man-made. We need access to land, we need access to data. Discoveries have been declining, and there's work being done by the Productivity Commission. We need to capitalise on that and make sure we free up that regulation. And again, with South Australia showing the way, the wonderful example, best in show, South Australia, they come the top of or they have been up to the top there, at the top in the Fraser Institute survey, the Malcolm Fraser Institute survey there of attractiveness of countries. South Australia way up the top, and some terrific work being done by Geoscience Australia, a key role there. And in many cases, it's not as if you're looking for any particular handouts here, because it's only the governments who can actually do that work. It's only the governments who can do the cross-border work, the cross-tenement work, and so on. Access to labour and skills, you don't need me to bang on about that. It really, we're looking for deregulation, not re-regulation. Access to infrastructure, we're about a generation behind. We've got to set about catching up. Access to capital in terms of the flow-through share scheme there, Julian. I've been thrown out of Peter Costello's and various other treasurers' offices over the years many times, but we'll eventually get that flow-through share scheme up there. Access to markets, very important. I mean, we have access to markets as mining companies, as FMGs and various others in terms of our products. But really it's for the METs, for the mining equipment and technical services industries, a terrific industry, greater than $20 billion per annum here in Australia, great export industry, really need that access to these markets. And that's why it was terrific to see Andrew Robb, and I listened to him last night at an APEC lecture somewhere, telling us about the work that they've done in Korea and Japan in terms of getting those free trade agreements. We must have those. Forget about lecturing people about human rights in this part of the world. Let's get trade and investment up there front and centre every time. And we've got to continue to be competitive, investor friendly, and build those continue to build those relationships. A bit of an obvious thing in a way, but we need to do it more and more in spades. And I have to say we've got some wonderful people in DFAT in particular, as well as private enterprise, doing that. But we've got to keep our eye on that ball all the time, Julian. Okay, in terms of the so-called captive resource developments, and Julian's talking about what I've been doing there for the past few years since the mighty Ox. Well, we've started Jason Chang, our heroic CEO here. We've started EMR Capital, and Jason and Richard Crooks here, the very famous Richard Crooks, worked here with Macquarie, and prior to that with Glencore. We've started EMR Capital. We've got those deep linkages into China and Asia generally. Very strong an operational background, a good, strong experience and committed team. And we're focused, would you believe, on copper. What a wonderful commodity. We mentioned it before, powering the whole infotech revolution, electrifying China. A wonderful commodity to be in. Gold, commodity, currency, as I say here, fascinating the world. Coking coal, good, high-quality coking coal, rare on this planet, so you want as much of that as you can possibly get. And potash in terms of feeding and growing the world. So EMR Capital, the new force in iron ore, a new force in iron ore, did I say? The new force in private equity, based in Melbourne, but we do have an office here in Sydney, Julian, housing Richard Crooks. G Resources, this is the mighty Matabi up in North Sumatra, Indonesia. It's in North Sumatra. It's owned out of Hong Kong by the publicly listed company G Resources, but it was founded, it was discovered by Normandy, by Robert Champion de Crepney, and Rob's son is actually working for us here at EMR, and he's here today, James de Crepney. It was founded by an Australian group. All of the engineering and design done here in Australia. It was financed partly out of Australia by the CBA and Colonial First Aid and other equity partners there. We've got 70 expats up there on site, and they've all got Aussie accents, so terrific Australian involvement in that mine up there. Spinning like a top. BDA actually involved all the way from the very beginning. Malcolm was telling me a bit earlier today, from the very discovery stage, BDA have been involved in that particular project. So wonderful, wonderful project. And as I say, Julian, in terms of quality, in terms of the tonnes, in terms of the grade, the metallurgy, the upside, the long life, the stable and secure domain, they're the key things that matter. It's got them all. Tigers Realm Coal, we mentioned them up in Chukotka, multiple high-quality coking coal deposits close to the surface, and even more important, very close to the Pacific Ocean and the adjacent markets of China, Japan and Korea. So wonderful development out there in Pacific Russia. So got all of those location advantages. And Tigers Realm Metals, we gave them a small run, a light run there a minute ago, Julian, in terms of the discovery of Butong up there in Aceh, close to infrastructure, close to the coast, close to power, and a Bougainville scale deposit, 500 plus million tonnes of about 0.6% copper at surface, open pittable and open in all directions. So that's, Julian, what's been keeping me busy the last 4 or 5 years. So coming to the conclusion here, you'll be pleased to hear, in summary, the boom is very far from over. And in fact, the other day at Port Hedland, on Tuesday it was, and reported in Mining News there, they shipped 2 million tonnes in 24 hours out of Port Hedland. One port, one day, 2 million tonnes of iron ore heading north. Just a sensational performance there. So it's far from over. We've got multiple decades still to run, and the best is yet to come in terms of that. Terrific opportunities for Australia and Australians and all of that. Plenty of work to do for all of us, and I look forward very much to being involved in all of that as much as I possibly can. I don't know what else to do. Thank you very much, Julian.